And welcome everyone to this very, very special episode today. Well, it's special. Before we go into all the formalities today, let's wish someone a very, very happy birthday. Very happy birthday to Usa Chandra, 2nd of August, and wishing you all the very, very best. Well, right now, if we take a look at what's happening today, what we're going to be looking at in today's show, so we will first be discussing the current updates in Queensland. We will probably bring to you some live comments later on, but first we will be joined by the experts and the doctor here who is suggesting that the lockdown might be, prolonged. But how will it take place? We will take a look at that as well. We'll also look at what it means for real estate and what are the, because they are dependent on inspections and other things, so what other rules and regulations regarding real estate inspections and other things during this lockdown. We'll take a short look at that only because on Wednesday, Usa Chandra will be here in the studios with us to discuss in great details, and we'll also look at another problem which is a big problem in Australia these days, homelessness, and we'll have a very special interview on that as well. That and plus lots more. But first of all, let's take a look at the situation in Queensland as it unfolds.
I think 3 days won't be long enough. I'll be surprised if we're back at the end of the week or this time next week. I think 2 weeks is probably what we're looking at.
Yeah, and when we're looking at the numbers as well, interesting that 5 of the cases yesterday were among children aged 10 to 19. Delta's certainly a different kind of strain, isn't it? We've seen it in Melbourne and Sydney, and now Queensland's having to deal with it.
Yes, look, we saw it in India as well. That's where it came from, and it seemed to go through very young people there. So we will need to look at our advice, I think, on AstraZeneca over the next week or two for Queensland as well as in Sydney. It's a pretty awful disease. But the good thing about it is we've got a vaccine. The vaccine seemed to work very, very well.
Yeah, when you talk about the advice in regards to AstraZeneca and the vaccine, what do you think it should be?
Well, I think we follow the ATAGI advice, and that is maybe not at the moment, but gee, we've got millions of them. We've got many places where they can be given. They can be rolled out pretty quickly, and one dose seems to work quite well. We'll just have to take it one day at a time, but I don't think people should be, too worried about which of the vaccines they get. They're both very good, and get whichever one you can when they're available.
Yeah,
and take people down.
Well, Queensland's interesting in that the vaccination rate there is lower than other states. What do you put that down to?
Oh, it's the same old vaccine hesitancy, and especially outside of Brisbane, people think they won't get the disease. Now we know that somebody's been to Rockhampton, so maybe that will change. But I think we're 37% compared to New South Wales' 41% having had their first vaccination. Hesitancy rates in Australia are supposed to have dropped 33% down from 33% down to 21% over the last couple of weeks. So I think we'll be able to get to the 80% vaccination rate without too much effort, without too much mayhem and too many lockdowns in our community, which, as you know, are pretty awful.
Yeah, but you are expecting this to get worse. I mean, we heard from Jeanette Young. She's clearly very concerned about who else might be out in the community and doesn't know that they're carrying it.
Yeah, well, one of the issues is that it's the 2 grammar schools in Brisbane which get pupils from all over southeast Queensland, and they're very big schools. And the disease runs in children by the look, so we could have a real bad time, but hopefully not.
So there you go. He's talking about the lockdown maybe going on for another 2 weeks, but anyway, we'll find out later in the day where we are and what's the situation with this the pandemic and where we will be heading towards. Well, right now, let's take a look at another area where there is some growing concerns, which is about the aged care and the vaccination rate in the people who are looking after the aged?
Well, women giving birth during the pandemic are having a tough time with restrictions in place. Lockdowns have meant that new mothers in particular are often denied the usual emotional support.
Now, all this has led to a concern over the possible rising numbers in postnatal depression. Well, joining us now is Kelly Wilton, and she is the Principal Midwifery Officer at the Australian College of Midwives. Thank you so much, Kelly, for taking the time to speak with us. There's a lot of confusion as to what is allowed, what is not allowed, who's allowed in the birthing room, particularly in New South Wales during this particular lockdown. If you could just clarify for us the rules around the birthing process. Who's allowed in? Is the mother allowed? Any family with them during the process?
Look, it is very hard to clarify those rules because they are being made, at a local level, depending on, what's going on in the rates of infection in the local level. But the reports that we are hearing are that women are only allowed to bring one support person into the birth. And then we're hearing additional stories around testing, that person needs to have had a negative test, possibly even the mother needing to have a negative test. test. And what's most concerning is that if people haven't had a negative test, that they're not readily able to access rapid point-of-care testing because those tests are being diverted away from maternity areas into other areas of the hospital.
What happens if the mother does test positive?
There are protocols in place. Should a mother test positive, we should be able to, with all our training and knowledge, midwives and health staff should be able to accommodate for, a woman who tests positive. If she's very unwell, there are, access to caesarean section or other methods, to be out if the baby is compromised. But really, we have a lot of evidence from working with women overseas who are infected with COVID during their birthing process, and that should guide us to be able to work safely, to be able to provide women-centred care for those women.
What about after the birthing? The birthing process is one thing, and you do need support and family support in particular, or partner support with you at that time. But what about afterwards? Who's allowed in the room with mum and bub?
So what we're hearing is that immediately after the birth, the partner or the support person who has been with the woman has been allowed to stay. Been hearing varying reports from between an hour to 4 hours. But then as the woman is moved to the postnatal ward, if she's choosing to stay in hospital, quite often that is where we are seeing women and their support people separated. That becomes particularly problematic if the woman has had a caesarean section or perhaps requiring
staying home unless it's absolutely essential, and that goes for shopping as well. So retail shopping is not essential, food shopping is, but only go out when you really need to go shopping and getting your groceries. So we need people looking at the roadmap. Please don't just rely on what you know have been the lockdown rules previously. This lockdown is harder for a good reason. We're trying to save lives. So the number of people you're allowed in your household, which is 0, where you can go, what you can do, the rules are stricter this time. So please don't rely on what you've known in the past about number of gatherings and being outdoors and mask wearing. Look up the roadmap, go to the Queensland COVID website, look at our social media, and of course keep checking for exposure sites across the 11 LGAs or anywhere in Queensland. Check for exposure sites on a regular basis, multiple times a day. And of course check our website and social media for any testing clinics as well. And as Dr. Young has said, if you have a booking for a vaccination, make sure you go and get that vaccination. If you haven't booked in for your GP yet and you are eligible to go to your GP and get your vaccination, please do so as soon as possible.
I'll start with thanking the vast majority of our community that are doing the right thing through this very difficult time, but unfortunately I do have to focus on those that are doing the wrong thing. It's quite regrettable for us that we have to be out policing a protest this morning when we're in lockdown. My message to those people that are tying up hundreds of police that could be doing other things is go home. Now is not the time to protest. Put the interests of your community's safety ahead of your own views. We also had to hand out 205 masks yesterday. The message is really clear. Carry your mask with you and wear it when you should. We responded to 116 calls for service where our community is concerned about the behaviour of people. That stretches our resources, so we need you to do the right thing. In the last 24 hours, we issued 29 penalty infringement notices, 18 of which were people who were out of lockdown when they had no valid reason. We had another 2 breaches of restrictions within homes, so unauthorised party type of scenario. 1 person refusing to wear a mask when they didn't, a couple of border breaches, 3 persons disobeying a direct direction from an emergency officer, so that's a police officer, and 3 breaches of public health directions. Now, what is disappointing about all of those, in every single case people are given the opportunity to comply. They choose not to, and we're left with no option but to take action. In a further 2 cases we had to arrest people because of the nature of the event. the plea there for all of our community who are doing the right thing, for those that think that what they want to do is more important than the broader community, wake up to yourself. Think about that, please. Thank you.
Dr. Young, sorry, Treasurer, I was going to go later.
Won't be too long. Throughout the pandemic, Queensland has demonstrated one fundamental truth. When we act decisively, when we act fast, we get the best results. That's been the case with our health response to COVID-19. It's also been the case with our economic response to COVID-19. But now we're dealing with a different enemy, and that enemy is called Delta. The Delta variant is dangerous, the Delta variant is dire, but most importantly, the Delta variant is deadly. Previously, we've seen Queenslanders respond to business out of short, fast lockdowns, and we've seen retail trade activity and consumer spending bounce back significantly after short lockdowns. But now we've had 2 lockdowns in the space of 1 month, and that just hasn't allowed Queensland businesses to be able to recover from the impact of the first lockdown. So today I'm announcing a $260 million package to support Queensland businesses, particularly small and medium-sized enterprises. We'll be opening a 2021 COVID business support grant program. That'll be $5,000 grants available to Queensland businesses, not just businesses in the lockdown area. That'll be available to all Queensland businesses, and that recognises the impact that the Delta variant has had on those businesses, because it stopped the visitors, it stopped the tourists coming from other parts of the country who are also in lockdown. So those grants will be available to Queensland businesses. In the lockdown area, in the 11 local government areas, we'll also be ensuring those grants are available to large businesses who operate in the hospitality and tourism space. They will be supported through these grants as well. So every lockdown is different, and every lockdown requires a different response at multiple levels from government, but this is an important step. And these businesses, of course, are employing businesses. These are businesses that employ people, and that allows us to provide some cash flow support so those businesses can continue to operate. We're also calling on councils to look at how they can help businesses. The federal government's dug deep, the state government's dug deep, we've gone into deficit and borrowed to help. We're looking to councils now to do their bit to help businesses in their affected local government areas as well. In conclusion, can I just say to businesses across Queensland, thank you for your strength and resilience. You have been terrific, you've been fantastic during the pandemic. You've kept businesses going, you've kept our economy going, and now we're providing some support to you. If we obey the health advice, if we follow the health advice, we can get through this lockdown and get back open and trading as quickly as possible, and that's the objective of the government.
Dr. Young, have you yet found the missing link between the Sunshine Coast return traveller and the medical students?
No, I haven't found the missing link, but I do have more genome sequence results. Another 9 came through overnight, and they're all clustering with those initial 2. So the gentleman who travelled from Indonesia, and the person who travelled from the UK, and the 17-year-old who was the first person in the household who we tested positive. So now I am very confident that the medical student did not take the virus into that household with 5 people in it, where the 17-year-old was. One of that household gave it to the medical student. So I don't know where the missing link is. All I know is we had 2 people arrive from overseas into the Brisbane International Airport on the 29th of June, and subsequently those 2 people were found to have the Delta variant with a particular whole genome sequence, and now this outbreak, 29 additional people later, are all clustering with those 2. But I don't know how it's got from those 2 original people to this household of 5, who are the first people that I've found in the cluster. I do have PCR, so acute swab results from the family of that gentleman who was managed up in the Sunshine Coast and went home to Budrum. It doesn't look like he spread it to the family. We've got to get some additional tests. The initial serology is suggestive that he did not, so I don't think that's the avenue of spread. So I genuinely don't know how it's got from those 2 people who came into Queensland on the 29th of June, and now we've seen this outbreak.
Given what's happening in the community, do you expect more cases to come between now and Sunday?
Yes, of course I do. So a lot of additional cases. That's why it's so important we get people tested as soon as possible and that everyone follows those stay-at-home orders, because we are going to see a lot more exposure venues. Just for example, one of those cases that I've announced today had been in the community for 6 days while infectious before they were placed into quarantine. So there will be a lot of exposure venues. Those exposure venues will decrease as people are staying at home and aren't out there being exposed. So please, just don't leave your own home for your own sake unless you absolutely have to. That's critical, because you can't get exposed to the virus if you're not coming across someone who has it. And we don't know the people who have it at this stage.
How hopeful or realistic is it that the lockdown might be lifted at 4 o'clock on Sunday?
Let me see what happens over the next few days. So it's been extended for another 6 days to give us a chance to get on top of all of those current people who've been exposed, and we'll soon know within the next few days where we're tracking.
Dr. Young, can you explain what's happening in Rockhampton? A lot of concerned families there, particularly with that with the year sign.
Yes.
And I think there was a school that was affected as well.
Yes. So yes, there was someone who went from Brisbane, an essential worker, up to Rockhampton and were there for 3 days, but there hasn't at this stage been a transmission event. So it's really important that anyone in Rockhampton with any symptoms just comes forward and gets tested. And similarly, the school went to the weir, but I don't know that there was any direct crossover. But look, we know that Delta can transmit within seconds. So the thing is to be as cautious as you possibly can. Anyone in Rockhampton with any symptoms, please just get tested. Don't think it might be something else, hay fever or anything else. Just get tested.
Given the current situation, Dr. Young, do you think people under the age of 60 should get AstraZeneca if it's immediately available?
That's something that everyone should consider, and of course should, as the advice from ATAGI has said now, should go and talk that through with their doctor. Anyone, and I am still concerned, there are still people over the age of 60 years or over, who haven't had their vaccine. So anyone who is 60 years of age or older, if you haven't had your AstraZeneca vaccine, unless your GP says you're one of that tiny group that shouldn't get it, then please go to your GP and get vaccinated, because we know that people over 60, and in Queensland our 7 deaths to date have all been since the start of the pandemic, have all been in people well over the age of 60. So please, if you are 60 years of age or older, go immediately and get your first dose of AstraZeneca. And if you're due for your second dose, and it's been more than 8 weeks since your first dose, go and get your second dose.
Has your view on under 60s changed given the higher risk now?
I think it's important that people have that discussion with their GPs. That is the advice from ATAGI. If you are under 60 and you feel particularly concerned, go and talk to your GP about whether or not you should be having a dose of AstraZeneca. So I will be going and seeing my GP to have my second dose earlier. I wasn't due till the 31st of August. I will be going and getting my second dose of AstraZeneca earlier. Sorry?
Are you giving any consideration to your 12 students getting vaccinated, like in New South Wales?
No, not at this stage. At this stage, I want the people who are most at risk of spreading the virus to continue to get vaccinated with Pfizer. So I want every single aged care worker who isn't already vaccinated. You should be. It's mandatory by September, but I want you to get vaccinated now. So any aged care worker who hasn't been vaccinated, you have to come forward and get vaccinated. In New South Wales today, we've seen more cases in a nursing home. Please, it is so important. I want any healthcare worker, anywhere in the state. We're at around 80% of healthcare workers, frontline healthcare workers now vaccinated. I need 100% of our healthcare workers to be vaccinated, because we are going to be, no matter how effective we are in the next 6 days, we are going to be treating more people with COVID. You need to be vaccinated, but not only for your own sake, but I don't want you to then leave work and spread the virus to your own family or to other people in the community. We need to really push this. Then I need people in our hotels who are managing quarantine cases. You have been just brilliant. You really and truly have. Our hotels have been the backbone of our response and have done a fantastic job. If there's anyone left, I don't think there is actually, but if there's anyone left there who hasn't been vaccinated, they must be vaccinated. And similarly at the airport. That is the way we will keep most Queenslanders safe if we stop this virus continuing to come into our state.
Are there any exposure sites you're particularly concerned about?
The schools. I really am very, very concerned about these 6 schools. We know Delta is much more likely to spread amongst younger people. So in previous outbreaks, we've known that younger people have been spared, but Delta has a closer affinity to respiratory cells, and we know younger people are more at risk. And although they're less likely to do particularly badly if they get infected, they're less likely to die, they are more likely to transmit to other people. So I am very worried about those 6 schools. So although it's destroying our health workforce numbers, because a lot of health workers have children going to those 6 schools, and now those health workers are in quarantine with their children, they're not at work, I need that to happen, because I cannot have those health workers going into the workplace and spreading the virus.
Possible vaccinated asymptomatic person could have been that missing link between.
Yeah, it could be possible, yes, it could be.
And do you know, of the 31 cases, do you know how many are kids?
The majority are kids.
Just on the researchers, for example, being told to home isolate if they're linked with the schools, are you concerned by that backlog with surgeries now? If we've got surgeons in home isolation, is there?
Yeah, I'm very, very concerned. So we are doing the work now to look at the impact of all of that health workforce being at home. Now, hopefully they're only at home for 14 days, and then we can get back and we can ramp up elective surgery and outpatients again. But I have spoken to our hospitals, and I know our Director General has spoken to our hospitals to look at what is the critical work that needs to continue and what work can just be deferred for the next week.
We've had a mum from Ironside State School, her 7-year-old son tried to go to Brisbane Hospital. He's been transferred to the Gold Coast because they said Brisbane Hospital.
A special update on Australian Indian Radio.
We currently have 4 hospitals that can safely manage COVID cases. We're looking at how we can urgently ramp that up. But at the moment, our 4 hospitals are Prince Charles Hospital, Royal Brisbane and Women's Hospital, Gold Coast Hospital and Sunshine Coast Hospital. They have the environment and they have the expertise. And if it was me, I would be very grateful if I got admitted to any one of those 4 hospitals. That is far better than going to one of the other hospitals, but we will have to ramp up other hospitals. The other hospital, but I am keeping that for when the children become very unwell, is our Children's Hospital. It also has developed a lot of expertise at treating COVID. So, look, I'm sorry that people have to travel an hour and a half down to the Gold Coast to be admitted down there, but can I say that the Gold Coast Hospital is one of our best hospitals for treating COVID. It actually had a ward built after the last SARS pandemic that happened in Asia, if you remember. It built a ward for exactly this situation. It's probably our best setup in the state. So I'd be very happy to be admitted to the Gold Coast myself.
Is it concerning though that we're only about halfway through this pandemic lockdown, Semester Sunday, and maybe local hospitals are filling up with COVID patients?
Yes, of course it's concerning. That's why I'm saying we need to lock down really, really hard, the hardest we've ever locked down. This is genuinely If you don't need to leave your house, don't. It is really, really, really important. And I cannot understand why anyone would be in an office today. If you are in an office today, why aren't you at home? There are far too many cars out on the road when I drove in this morning. So please, so that we can make sure that we provide 100% the best possible care we can, I need fewer people with COVID so we can continue to provide that care. A very astute comment. Thank you.
On the testing front, obviously there were massive lines yesterday, up to 5 hours. People were losing their places in the queue because they had to go to the toilet. And I understand some changes have been brought in today,
yes,
but so many places were closed yesterday. Is the government, and I'm sure if this is a question for someone else, are they doing it? Are we going to extend
yes,
city
of
hours?
course.
They're going to be opening. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so we're extending all of our clinics to the times that they can be managed. We're getting extra workforce in. We're working very, very closely with the private sector. Can I say I'm so glad our private sector in Queensland in pathology is one of the best in the country, if not in the world, and they are standing up. They do cut back on weekends because they've got workforce issues as well, but they'll be ramping up readily today. So the fact yesterday that we doubled our numbers and we ended up with 5-hour queues, that will be brought back in control today. And I thank every single person who went and queued for those 5 hours. Thank you very, very much.
Dr. Young, on the health confirm the rules for the construction industry?
Yep. So construction can occur where it is commercial construction, or it is, for instance, building a house and there's no one living there. That can continue at this point in time, and I want to congratulate the construction industry in Queensland. They have worked with me every single day, right from the start when we had outbreaks, to make sure that we wouldn't get outbreaks in the construction industry, and we've not seen them. I do not want the construction industry continuing to work where there are people living in that house, because those people are required to stay home. So there's a risk there. So unless that is essential work, so sometimes you're building something and you can't just pause for a week. You just can't. You're at a critical point of having a roof or a ceiling or something's happening. That needs to continue. But if it's not critical and it can be paused for a week, then please pause it. And the other reason, of course, if you've got a burst pipe or something like that's happened, or your electricity, then that's critical. So I know the construction industry is extraordinarily sensible. They will know what is critical, what is essential. That needs to continue. And I know that the commercial sites have got some really good workplace health and safety processes in place, so that can continue. But for domestic homes, unless you're building a new house from scratch, of course, that I would regard as commercial. But if you're going into someone's home, then no, please don't do that.
Dr. Young, have we had to ask for any contact tracing help from other states at all at this stage?
No, we have got a lot of contact tracers. I have asked this morning from my colleagues from other government agencies to release the staff that they released to us last year. We had a lot of staff from a lot of different agencies providing support to health last year. I want those same people, because they're already trained, they know what they're doing, to come back, plus more, and they've immediately responded. So we have a joined up government here in Queensland, and we all work together and support each other.
How many health workers do you estimate are affected?
I'm getting that number. I hadn't received it prior to coming to this press conference.
And on the children, so the majority of cases...
I believe so, but we'll be able to give you that exact breakdown of all of the cases. But I can give you this morning's, if that is useful to people. So 10 are in the 0 to 9 age group, 1 in the 10 to 19, 1 in the 20 to 29, and 3 in the 30 to 39. That's today's numbers.
There's been texted by someone who said there's construction work taking place at Ipswich Hospital today.
Yes.
Is that something that should be continued?
Yes, absolutely. We need our hospitals to have that work, and of course a hospital more than anywhere understands about the infection control and the separation. But we have to continue ramping up our hospitals able to take on additional cases.
Yeah.
If this doesn't end on Sunday, we have to be prepared. I hope, and look, I'm pretty confident with the response I've always had from Queenslanders that we'll be able to get this under control by Sunday, but I always plan for the next stage. You don't employ me to just think about what's happening today. You employ me as Queenslanders to think about what's going to happen in a month's time or 6 months' time, and that's what I'm doing.
Just on the AstraZeneca, in hindsight, was it a mistake to be so unequivocal and say I don't want under 40s to get the AstraZeneca, given the changing risk factors now?
No.
Issues with hesitancy. Should you have been so hardline about it, or really just reflecting
No,
the target?
I've been very, very clear, and I remain clear. And what worries me is if you are 60 years of age or over and you haven't had an AstraZeneca vaccine, and I've always been crystal clear, they are the people most at risk.
Yep. Talking about the younger people,
Yep.
because you were very firm on
Yep,
that.
and I remain firm. They need to, as per the ATAGI advice and the TGA advice, and advice if you look around the world, they need to, if they think they have a particular risk, immediately go and talk to their own doctor. I said I didn't want 18-year-olds to have AstraZeneca, and I still don't.
Even now, at the risk factors?
Even now, yes.
So what age should they get AstraZeneca?
60. Please, I don't know how I can be clearer than this. If you are 60 years of age or older, go and get your first dose of AstraZeneca if you haven't had it already. And if it is 8 weeks since that first dose, go and get your second dose. That's what I'm organising today. I want anyone who has had their first dose of AstraZeneca, if it is more than 8 weeks since you had that, go and get your second dose. And the Commonwealth, I rang them this morning, the Commonwealth is standing up more pharmacies all through southeast Queensland to be able to administer AstraZeneca. Not sure if that'll be in place today, but it'll be in place in the coming days. So you can go to a pharmacy for your second dose, or you can go to your GP or one of the clinics that the Commonwealth has in place.
But the do you have that number of how many people are in quarantine at the moment?
I've got a number, but it's many, many, many more than that number. The data is catching up, so it'll be thousands and thousands.
Would it be over 10,000?
I don't think it'll be over 10,000 in home quarantine. All up, yes, I think it'll be over 10,000.
Can I just ask you, I think you said this morning you may not abide by the National Cabinet vaccination plan or the target. What is the target to come out of lockdown in your view and Queensland government?
That's not exactly what I said. I just indicated that roadmaps have been very useful throughout this pandemic. We support the roadmap that came out of National Cabinet. But as always, the decisions that will be made at that point in time will be based on the facts at that point in time. The rate of vaccination will be one of them. The nature of an outbreak and the strain of that outbreak will also need to be considered.
So there's no sort of set target in your view, it's just it depends on that sort of going.
Well, look, I'll take the health advice. Those thresholds seem sensible to me at the point at which you could start to take those vaccination rates into account when determining what other restrictions need to be put in place to stop an outbreak.
We asked the Treasurer a question.
Sorry, are elective surgeries being cancelled? Is it non-urgent elective surgery?
I understand some of our hospitals will be rescheduling some Category 2 and 3 elective surgeries as well as specialist outpatient appointments. They'll be determining the level of critical services that can be supported with their workforce and then making assessments about less urgent activity.
Treasurer, just on that, the grants. I spoke to a small business owner this morning who runs a cafe, and she said she's making decisions, as they all are, about whether she pays a rent or a wages this week. Given that, how soon will they be able to access this money? When will it be in their bank accounts?
So we need to set up the process for the applications to be considered and dealt with by government. We're looking to set up the processing administrative process for this within 2 weeks. That would be twice as fast as New South Wales. New South Wales spent 4 weeks setting up their processes. We've looked at that very carefully inside government, and we aim to get the application process going within 2 weeks. In a fortnight we'll have to put a regulation through to allow the payments to be made as well, but we're getting on with the job. We're going to do this as quickly as possible.
A lot of small businesses say they may not be able to survive 2 weeks. Is there any way it could be done faster?
We will work as hard as we can, but we'll be working twice as fast as New South Wales and we'll be getting the money out as quickly as we can.
And how will they get it? How will it be distributed to?
It'll be an online application process, as we've done previously with our grants. We had a very significant small business grant process in our COVID recovery package last year, part of the $14.2 billion we've already provided to Queensland individuals, families and households and businesses. So we'll be getting that out through bank accounts. So they'll lodge an electronic application through the Department of Employment, Small Business and Training. That'll be processed quickly and we'll turn that money out as quickly as we can. But we'll have a lot of applications. It will take time to get the money out, but it will be on par or faster than other parts of the country.
Will the government make more money available to the next lockdown to continue to extend further?
Well, there's agreed processes with the federal government now, and I thank the federal government for triggering the COVID disaster recovery payments that they've activated, and there's an established process agreed by National Cabinet about ongoing payments. For the time being, this is what we'll be doing, and if those other triggers are met, we will of course be paying more under that nationally agreed arrangement.
If the 260 million isn't enough, there's too many businesses applying for it, will some businesses miss out, or will there be more money out of it?
No, we anticipate that will be sufficient funding on the analysis we've done to this point, but anyone who makes application will receive that funding.
Okay.
Thanks very much.
Are you talking educationist?
If you need gross,
Yeah, that would be, if you're available, that'd be great.
Ladies and gentlemen, there you are, up to date, and that lockdown is extended till the 8th of August. So that's the latest news, and we'll keep you updated as we get more on hand. But right now, as promised, we'll also take a look at what's happening in the real estate industry. Here's Antonia from REIQ.
Lockdown, as I've already mentioned, visitors are not permitted. So I'm going to give you now what is REIQ's best practice recommendation. So I want to be clear about this. At this stage, we are still seeking further advice on exactly how many can attend. So our best practice recommendation is that when you are conducting a private appointment for an inspection, we would like to see only one person coming through with the agent at any point in time. So if you are dealing with a couple, we would recommend the other half of that couple waits outside. So that is REIQ's best practice recommendation. Now, again, the direction talks about private appointments by inspection only. It does not then elaborate on what that looks like and the specifics of that. So our recommendation is this: you arrange the private appointment, a time and a date, you bring that person through. You'll still need to comply with the necessary requirements in terms of face masks. And of course, you still need to be collecting the information. You should all by now be using that QR code under the Queensland COVID Safe app. You should have been doing that for some time. Again, we will post a link to that in this video, and the checklist should also be used. We would strongly recommend all the normal hygiene protocols. Make sure you stay with that person as you're taking them through. Try and limit what they're touching, and of course hand sanitizer is recommended. Can I please say this to everyone watching, and can you please spread the word? It is a privilege that we are still able to conduct inspections for both property management purposes or rental purposes and for sales. It is a privilege, and we don't want to lose this privilege. So can I please strongly recommend that when we look at the term of private appointment, that means genuinely by private appointment. Think about the optics here, ladies and gentlemen. We don't want to see people queuing. So when you are scheduling your private appointments, please make sure that you are strict about how long people are in the house for, and that you don't end up with a queue of people at the front of the house. I can assure.
So that's a very clear message there from Antonio, and thanks very much for that wonderful, update, keeping the industry updated. So that is very, very valuable information that you have provided there. Well, right now we'll go to the interview for today. As we know, there's lots of things that are happening out there, but as we know that today begins, or yesterday it began from 1st of August till 7th of August, is the Homelessness Week. A new research released to coincide with the Homelessness Week, which is from 1st till 7th of August, shows a staggering 1 in 5, meaning 20% Australians have experienced homelessness at some point in their lives. The exposing data demonstrated there are never been more important time to support Orange Sky 2021 Satsi Challenge from 2nd to 19th of September. And a recent study commissioned by Orange reveals some uncomfortable truths commissioned by the uncomfortable truth about life and the lucky country, with a growing number of Australians facing financial hardship and struggling to make ends eat. The challenges of the past 12 months have a profound impact on the economic and mental health of Australians, with close to half, meaning 43% of Australians revealing they experience financial and social difficulties at one stage of their life, including being unable to pay for essentials such as rent, mortgage, bills, or food. Well, Orange Sky is one of the world's first free mobile laundry and shower service for people experiencing homelessness, which began in 2014 with a single van named Satsi, built by Orange Sky co-founders Nick Massey and Lucas Patchett. We will try and get Lucas Patchett on the show very soon. And now in its third year, the challenge aims to wash away the stigma surrounding homelessness by challenging Aussies to wear the same clothes across 3 consecutive days to spark a conversation about homelessness and help support the increasing number of highly vulnerable, at-risk Australians. So right now, ladies and gentlemen, on the line we have Lucas Patchett, the co-founder of Orange Australia. So, as we know that this is a very, very excellent initiative. So Lucas is the executive director and co-founder of Orange Sky and has played a critical role in the strategic direction and culture of Orange Sky. Lucas has been fundamental to the development of Orange Sky's strategic goals and objectives. So, moving on, let's get into the interview. So, Lucas, could you tell us about the new research on homelessness in Australia?
New research has revealed that 1 in 5 Aussies have experienced homelessness at some point in their life, and that close to half of Australians have experienced financial and social difficulties at least once a year. And I think what we see across Australia on our vans at Orange Sky is so many people from all walks of life, not just someone you might associate with being homeless, but someone who is just struggling to pay the bills, who saving $20 to do a load of washing can go towards food or can go towards a power bill and can make a really big difference in someone's life.
Well, definitely, quite well said, Lucas, there. But right now, moving on, how has the past 12 months, impacted on people's life as we have seen these unforeseen circumstances?
I think since the beginning of the pandemic, we've seen the importance of hygiene, the importance of human connection really come to a forefront for people who were locked at home for extended periods of time. That was such a struggle. For finding somewhere to wash your hands was a massive challenge throughout the pandemic, and that has really highlighted the challenges that our friends on the street see every single day, and I think brought that to the forefront. There's 116,000 Aussies who are doing it tough. The last 12 months hasn't been kind to them, and it's potentially bringing more and more people into that cohort.
And of course, that is a very, very alarming figure there as well. So could you tell us about the Satsi Challenge and what it is all about?
So the Satsi Challenge is Orange Sky's annual fundraising event where we encourage everyone to take on the challenge. The challenge is you keep your kit on for 3 days, you wear the same clothes, start as many conversations as possible, and you really raise funds for Orange Sky to continue the work that we do. And this year we're going bigger and better than we've ever had before, and what that's going to mean is more conversations, more funds raised, and more important work that we can do on the streets of Australia.
And congratulations on doing such a wonderful job and making it bigger this year and raising that awareness. It is quite important. I do see that quite often, when I go even for my morning walks, I see people in many places and I say, how unfortunate are they? And of course, getting an opportunity to go and have a shower there, it is wonderful, wonderful initiative. But there are still many people out there, Lucas, who are still doing it tough. So what advice would you have for the Aussies who are really doing it tough?
I think what we see every day on our vans is people from all walks of life coming down for a non-judgmental chat and for that connection. I think we all need connection in our life, and that looks different for every single person. So if anyone is struggling out there, please do seek help, build those connections in your community or outside of it. If you are struggling, a good place to start as well is on our Orange Go van. You can come down, you're going to have a friendly face, you're going to have an awesome orange chair to come have a chat.
And that's awesome, Lucas. And as you have rightfully said, that if you are doing it tough, please do reach out. Help is available. There's so many different community organizations, including Beyond Blue and other mental health organizations as well. And there are other government bodies which you can reach out to. So you're not alone. Check with everyone and always reach out there. So, Lucas, I'm mindful of the time as well. So where can Australians go to sign up for this challenge?
So you can jump on now at thesudsychallenge.com. You can sign up. If you raise $24, we'll send you a T-shirt to wear, and that'll start even more conversations. You can sign up as a team with a bunch of mates. You can sign up as a workplace or as a school, and we want to start as many conversations, raise as much funds as possible to continue supporting the work that we do on the streets of Australia.
Lucas, thank you so much for being on the show and discussing that very, very rising issue, which is homelessness in Australia. And people would say Australia is a rich country, that there are many people here doing it very tough. I know that there are people who have come from overseas and many times here well settled, while the many people who have been here all the time are actually doing it really, really tough as well. So have a thought for them as well. I know there are many cohorts whom a lot of attention has been paid, and something happens, that's a lot of political things, and of course social media uproar about them as well. But think about these people as well, right here in our own backyards as well. So ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned before that, we'd also be discussing GOPIO Queensland's upcoming India Day Fair. So ladies and gentlemen, please stay tuned for updates. We will be guided by what's all the directives by Queensland Health and Queensland Government. At the moment, the lockdown is till 8th, and we will keep a very close eye. And tonight, there will be an emergency meeting of all the executives, and by tomorrow, we'll bring you an update. Stay tuned, and always, everyone will be notified. People who have registered to be, performers, stall holders, they'll all be kept in the loop with the reminders and, of course, the email notification of what's happening. And we'll try to bring you as much update as is available. Of course, if whole of Queensland does the right thing, the restrictions could be lifted, but if the cases grow, it could even mean that, there might be a postponement. It is hard to say at this point in time, but be rest assured that we will keep you updated on that. So ladies and gentlemen, in this very, very important update day today on the 2nd of August 2021, right now, Brisbane, 24 degrees and sunny. And it is time to say goodbye until the next update. If the need be, if there is any updates, we will go live once again during the day. But apart from that, tomorrow morning, we'll bring to you all the updates again. So thanks very much. And thanks to Lucas for joining in and raising that information about Homelessness Week, which started yesterday and goes till the 7th of August. So, that is another sector. So there's all these many things happening in the community, which we will try and keep you updated with. Until the next update, it's goodbye from me. Do whatever you may. Oh, well, by the way, before I go, I'm not showing our usual event section because we need to check from all the organizers what the status of the events are. So that's why, hence, we didn't have the upcoming event segment today, but we had that rather extended update from Queensland Government and Queensland Health, which was very important and a very vital information for all. So until next update, it's goodbye from me.